Hi there. So the first thing I'm going to say is, in order to prepare best for your assessment next Thursday, do not just watch this video. What I want you to do is have a go at every question. You can either do it just by watching the video, pausing it and having a go, or you can print off the questions from class charts. Okay, so here's question 1. So as I said, pause it and give it a go. Now we want to draw a two-way table to sort this out, which should look something like this. Now, how do you know that you can use a two-way table? It's because you've got two different types of things, either subjects and what year group people are in. And there are other ways to do this, but this makes it the easiest. So we're going to fill in one bit at a time. So there's 120 students who've been asked. That's 122 altogether. So that's our total, our grand total of the totals. Then we've got 52 students are in year 11. So that must mean that we've got 52 there. The rest are in year 10. 45 students like physics best. So that's 45 altogether. They've said nothing about the year group, so it must be all of them. 20 of the year 11 students like biology. Of the 30 students, hang on, 20 of the year 11 students like biology best. There should be a little comma in there. So sorry, that's 20. 16 of the 30 students who like chemistry best. So there are 30 altogether who like chemistry best. And 16 of them are in year 10. Now, we've got to work out how many year 10 students like physics best, but I'm not going to worry about that too much. I'm going to start filling in anything where I've just got one space in one row. So because there are 52 liking from year 11, to get up to 120, there must be another 68 in year 10. Because there are 16 liking chemistry in year 10, 16 plus 14 makes 30. Now I know that there's 30 liking chemistry and 45 liking physics. If that all adds up to 120, they add up to 75. 75 plus 55 makes 120, so there must be 55 on biology. I can then say, oh, this must be 35 going there, and we must here have, well, we've got one gap here, haven't we? 51 plus 17 makes 68. So my answer is going to be 17, but I'm going to double check that I've got it right. Because 20 plus 14 is 34. 34 plus 18 makes that. Oh, hang on, I think I've done something wrong. 34 plus 28 makes 52. And then if I double check here, 17 and 28, does that make 45? Yes, it does. And use your calculator, even though it's all just adding, to double check that everything's right. Okay, question 2, drawing a stem and leaf diagram. So, here it comes. So there's the stem. Now, don't try and do it in order first time. Go through, cross each one out one at a time, put in the units on there, and you've got the tens just there. That keeps going and should give you something that looks like this. That's the first thing. Then you've got to draw it again, but in order. So the 0, then the 3, then the 7. The 0, then the 2, then the 2 4s, the 5, the 8, and the 9. Gets us to this. You still don't have full marks because you also need a key. So just pick one result and then say what that means. So that would be 44 points or whatever the units are. Okay, so that's your stem and leaf. Now the median test score is going to be the one in the middle. For 15 people, that's going to come at one more than the number you've got and halve it, which is the 8th person. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that 5 there means 45. So it would be 45. Now the interquartile range will be between the lower quartile and the upper quartile. The lower quartile comes at 15 plus 1 divided by 4, which would be 16 divided by 4, which is the fourth. 1, 2, 3, 4, which is 40. The upper quartile will come at that times 3 is the 12th result. 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's 51. And just as range is biggest takes smallest, the interquartile range is the difference from 51 take 40. Now you can't just write that, because that doesn't get you the mark. You need to say what the result of that is, because all the data varies by a score of 9, or the middle half of them do. Right, okay, so pause the video and give this one a go. So the modal group is the group that contains the mode, and the mode is the thing that happens most often. The most frequent thing to happen is 29, so 29 people travel between 30 and 40 minutes, so the modal group will be that group, and I just copy down exactly what that group is called. Now, estimating the distance of the mean time taken, that takes a bit, and you're going to need the calculator, because you've got to estimate how long all these 100 people have taken all together. I'm going to add on 2 extra columns, one called the midpoint, because I don't know how long those 14 people have taken, but I'm just going to guess that they're going to, on the whole, average out at taking 5 minutes each. And halfway there is 15, 25, 35, 45 and 55. Then how long those 14 people would have taken would be what you get when you multiply the frequency by the midpoint. So you're going to get your calculator out and you're going to do 14 times 5, 16 times 15 and so on, which should give you all of this data. So 16 times 15 and so on. Then we need to know the total time, so put them all in, add them all up. That gives me 2,770 minutes altogether by the 100 people. So then you need to divide the 2770 by 100, which gives you 27.7. Oh, that says estimate. That should just say estimate the mean time taken, shouldn't it? 27.7 minutes, and don't worry about the seconds part of it. Create suitable axis and illustrate the data as a frequency polygon. So that means you're going to need to draw axis going from 0 to 60 along the bottom and frequency going up the side to be high enough to include that 29. And it should look something like this. Now you're going to have to make up your own mind on the day about your axes, but I've just gone for something nice and simple. I've got 60 minutes, so I've used 1 centimetre for every 10 minutes, which gives me a millimetre a minute. And then going up the side, I know I need to include up to 29, so I've gone for 5 squares for 10. That's better than 4, folks, because that means I can go up in 0.2s, up in 2s, and if I want an odd number, then it's just half a square, which is quite easy to do. Now, when plotting a frequency curve, it's all about plotting the midpoint of the class against how many you've got. So I've got between 0 and 10, the midpoint, the frequency is 14, so that would be 12, 14 would be just there, so I'm going to put a little cross there. Then 10 to 20 is 15 is the midpoint. I'm going to go up to 16. Continuing that on, you should get a load of crosses that look something like that, and then you join them together. A polygon is normally something we talk about with a shape with many sides, so I think it's called a frequency polygon because you've got many sides going from one frequency to the next. And that is all it is. They're normally used when you've got two sets of data so that you can have two things on one graph, which helps you compare them. Right, we're going to have a fair bit of ratio, so pause the video, give this a go. So we've got Claire getting £60 less than Alf. So if we're just thinking about Alf and Claire, Claire has got 2 and Alf has got 5. So I would draw a little bar just to visualize it and think, right, Claire's got £60 less than, so 2 is the same amount, isn't it? So the amount less that she's got means Alf has got 60 more than her. So his 60 more must be in there. Now the one rule of ratio when you put it into a bar is that every one of these boxes needs to have the same number in it. So if I divide 60 by 3, I can put 20 in each of those. And now that I know that, it means there must be 20 in every single one of them. So Alf has 5 times 20 is £100. Billy has 3 times 20, which is £60. And Claire has 2 times 20, which is 40. And it asks us, always check what the question asks for exactly at the end. How much money did all three share together? Add those three numbers together and you get £200. Related to ratio is percentages, so give this one a go. So who got the highest mark? So Sophie got 43 out of 75. 56% of the 75 marks. Well, 56% means 0.56. So to get 56% of 75, you just need to multiply 75 by 0.56. 0.56 times 75, and that gives you 42 marks. So Amelia got 42. So Sophie got 1 more mark. But the important thing is I've said Sophie and I've shown why, because Amelia has 42. Next up, ratios in the form n to 1. So see what you think of this. Now sometimes it might say 1 to n. The important thing is that whichever side it says is 1, that's what it's got to be. And in order to get to that, all you have to do is divide both sides by whichever number you want to become 1. So I want the 2 to become 1. On this one, I want the 4 to become 1. On this, I want the 0.3 to become 1, so I divide by 0.3. Doesn't matter that it's a decimal. And the last one, I want the 2.5. So I'm going to put all of those into my calculator. I mean, the first one, 12 divided by 2, I don't need a calculator, 6 to 1. 10 divided by 4 in the calculator, or otherwise, would be 2.5 to 1. 9 divided by 0.3, well, I could do that without a calculator, but why take the risk? That gives me 30 to 1. And the last one is going to be the trickiest. 13.4 divided by 2.5 gives me, change it to a decimal, 5.36 to 1. That's it. More ratio. Pause this and give it a go. So we want to know lions to tigers to elephants. We know lions to tigers is 7 to 4, and elephants to tigers is 1 to 2. Now, it's the tigers we've got in both, so I'm going to write that the other way round and say tigers to elephants is 2 to 1, because I want the tiger number to be the same. That way I can compare them. Sometimes you have to multiply both ratios, but here, because 2 goes exactly into 4, I want the lowest common multiple of 2 and 4. Because 2 goes exactly into 4, I'm just going to double what I've got here, and that's going to give me 4 to 2. So that means I can now say I've got 7 lions to 4 tigers, and when I've got 4 tigers, I've got 2 elephants. Second part of the question. If the total number of these 3 sorts of animals is 260, how many tigers are there? So this is saying that all of these parts altogether need to share out 260. So how many parts have I got? I've got 7 plus 4 is 11 plus 2 is 13. So if I share 260 by 13, that would give me exactly 20 per share. So lions would be 7 times 20. 7 times 20 is 140. 4 times 20 for tigers, which is my question, so I'm going to write 80 tigers. I'm just going to do the last one though, just to check. 2 times 20 is 40. Now if I add them up at the end, 12, 16, and I get 260, I can be pretty sure I've got the right answer. So 80 tigers. Okay, here's a question with a bit of percentages and ratio. So they've booked theatre tickets costing £180 altogether. They have a voucher that enables them to 20% off the total price. So we're going to take 20% off 180. Now you can do it without a calculator, but if you take 80% off, I really want you to get into the habit of thinking, what have you got left? So what I want is 80% of 180. 80% is 0.8 as a decimal. So I'm going to do 0.8 multiplied by 180. And that gives me £144. So it's going to cost £144 altogether. Now, if I'm going to work out how much more Melissa pays than Charlotte, I need to know how much they both get paid. Now, they're in the ratio of 5 to 7. 5 parts plus 7 parts equals 12 parts. So I'm going to divide 144 by 12, which is £12 per part or per share. Charlotte is going to be 5 times 12, which is 60. And Melissa is going to be 7 times 12, which is 84. And we need to know how much more Melissa pays than Charlotte. Well, 84 is £24 more, so she pays £24 more. And I'll underline that so that we know that's my answer. Here's a curious little question. There wouldn't really be 3 marks just for that on its own, to be honest, but don't worry about that. Reciprocal is turning a fraction upside down. You know when you divide by fractions, you do keep, change, flip, and you turn the fraction upside down. When you do that, that's called the reciprocal. And 0.8 isn't a fraction yet, is it? So you could do this by using what you know about decimals and turning it into 8/10 and saying what is that, or you could, because you've got a calculator, just say 0.8 equals, and it'll turn it into a fraction for you. So 4/5 needs to be turned upside down. So 4/5 upside down is 5/4. So any decimal you've got, to find the reciprocal, you press equals, gives it to you as a fraction, turn it upside down. Now here's a revision of some stuff that we did quite some time ago. In fact, it was in the last test, nth terms. So 4n plus 3, the first 2 terms. Well, you could think of the 4n means multiplying by 4, and then we're adding 3. So the first term will always be what we get if n was equal to 1. So 4 times 1 gives you 4, and then plus 3 gives you 7. The second term will be what you get when n is 2. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 3 is 11. So 7 and 11 would be the first 2 terms. Then it asks if 35 is a term in the sequence. Now sometimes all the terms in this sequence are going to be odd. They might give you an even number and you could just say no because it's even, but unfortunately that's not going to happen here. What we've got to do is show how we get the answer. So I'm going to go backwards through my function machine here. So I've got 35. If I took 3 off, that would give me 32. If I divided it by 4, I would get 8. And what that means is it's the 8th term in the sequence. So showing my working, I could say 35 take 3 equals 32, divided by 4 equals 8. So I could say, yes, it's the 8th term. But just having that and then saying yes would be enough. Right, quadratic sequence. This is a big one, so pause it and give this a real good go. So first thing to do is look at the difference. So that's 10 more than -8, 14 more, 18 more, 34 to 56 is 22 more. Then what you need to do is look at the second difference. So just going above there, the second difference is 4, 4, 4. Now that links it to a quadratic sequence, which means it's to do with squares. N squared gets bigger by 2 each time, so we divide the second difference by 2, means it's going to be linked to 2n squared plus something. So I know it's going to have something to do with 2n squared. So I'm going to start off by making sure, thinking of what my n squared is going to be. Now n squared is always just your square numbers. So 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16. We've got 5 numbers here, so let's do 5 squared is 25. But I don't want n squared, I want 2n squared. So 2n squared is what you get when you double n squared. Double 1 is 2, double 4 is 8, double 9 is 18, double 16 is 32, double 25 is 50. Then we've got to say what's going to link 2n squared, because now we've got a sequence that is actually getting bigger by 4 each time. What's going to link this to that? So we write the original sequence down below, but I'm going to give enough room to have some thinking space between them. So I'm going to put -8, 2, 16, 34 and 56. Now I need to add, no I don't, I need to take 10, don't I, to get from 2 down to there. What do I do from 8 to get to 2? I take 6. To get from 18 to 16 I take just 2. To get from 32 to 34 I've got to add 2, and to get from 50 to 56 I add 6. So what is going on here? I now need to find the nth term as a linear sequence of these numbers here. So let's look at -10, -6, -2, 2 and 6. What's happening here? That's 4 bigger, that's 4 bigger, -2 to 2, 2 to 0, another 2 to 2, that's 4 bigger, that's 4 bigger. So the driver here is that it's getting 4 bigger each time. 4 bigger each time is like the 4 times table, so that's going to give us 4n. When n is 1, I'll get 4. So what do I have to add to 4 to get to -10? Got to add -14. I've got to take 14 away, haven't I? So 4n minus 14 is that sequence. This is what we have to do to that to get this. So we add this to that, and it gives us 2n squared plus 4n take 14. If you're thinking, what was he talking about there? I'd like to urge you to pause the video, go back and give it another go. Maybe tomorrow, but you can do it, I know, because lots of you did this really well when we did our previous assessment a few months ago. Right, recurring decimals. This is one of my favourites. Now you can check you've got the right answer if you know what you're doing with the calculator and the recurring symbol, wherever that is on here. It is on here somewhere. It's easier to find on the calculators you've got than mine actually, but never mind. If you can't find it on there, you don't get the marks for doing that anyway. We want to see it algebraically. So start off by picking a letter. I like to use F and saying that F is equal to 0.171 recurring. And the trick is we've got to multiply it by 10 enough times that all these numbers line up. 0.171 recurring means, okay, because that's what keeps on happening. So we're going to need to multiply by 1,000 to get it enough that the 7 is going to line up underneath it again. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 1,000, which means my F just becomes 1,000F, and this becomes 171.171 recurring. Sorry, I've squeezed that in a bit there, haven't I? Now what I do is I take the top one from the bottom one. If I take F from 1,000F, I'm left with 999F. And if I take 0.171 recurring from 171 point the same thing, it almost magically seems to chop off all the recurring stuff, and we're left with 171. So what do we do then? I don't want 999F, I want just F. So this is when I divide by 999, and this is what turns it into a fraction, because a fraction's another way of writing a division. So I've got there then. Only thing is, it says give your answer in its simplest form. So to get the last mark, I could do it by working out that I could divide them both by 9, or I could just say 171, oh, not 170, 171 over 999, having used that fraction button there, press equals, and it has simplified it for me to 19 over 111. Okay, we're nearly there, folks. We've just got 2 questions to go. So due to inflation, the cost of a new computer is raised by 16%. Work out the new price. Now you could do this by finding 16% and adding it on, but I'd like to remind you that you could also do it by thinking that if I increase the whole of something by 16%, I've now got 100 plus 16 makes 116%. And the percentage symbol just means divide by 100. So 116 divided by 100 is 1.16. So I want 116% of 380. So 380 multiplied by 1.16, pop that into your calculator, and it gives us, S to D, £440.80. Oh, don't write P on the end there, folks, because that means you're using 2 different units and you lose a mark for units. So just £440.80. And here's the final question. So pause the video, give it a go. This is what's called a reverse percentages problem. So I've bought a bike and we don't know how much for. And then I've sold it for £405.60, making a 22% loss. So I want to know how much it cost originally. Well, the key to this, first of all, is to think, what multiplier would I use to reduce something by 22%? So that's why I'm taking 22% away from 100, and that leaves me with 78%. So if I knew my original amount, I could multiply it by 78%, which is 0.78, and it would give me 405.6. So I need to reverse that multiplier. I reverse multiplication by dividing. So I'm going to divide by 0.78. And when I do that, 405.6, these always give nicer answers than you had for that price there. 0.78 equals 520. And that's going to give us £520. Remember, you cannot find 22% of that and add it on, because 22% of that number is less than 22% of this number, and this is the number that's lost 22% when I sold the bike in the first place. Okay, that's it. Well, do go through that as many times as you feel you need to, and then sleep well and come back refreshed to do the test next Thursday. Good luck, folks.